Reviews here, and today I'm going to review the Ecobee3 Lite and the Ecobee4, mainly because most of the feature functions, the basic functions are the same, but I'm going to point out the differences as well. I'm going to have a quick short install tutorial with this review as well, to show how the install goes and all that. JWINK reviews here, and today I'm installing and reviewing the Ecobee3 Lite, which I think is basically the replacement for the Ecobee3 Pro, because Ecobee no longer has that listed on their website, which is essentially the same as an Ecobee4 minus the Alexa capabilities. I'm also going to review an Ecobee4, which I also have, but I'm going to do the install. So basically I have the faceplate of the Ecobee3, instructions here, some wiring labels, the extender if you need it, if you don't have a C-wire, some screws and anchors for mounting it on the wall, and then the wiring plate. So I currently have the Ecobee ready to go, but I have the previous one I've got to uninstall here, which my particular system has the C-wire on it in addition to the other 4 wires. I've got to take these off. So I'm going to do that next and take the wall plate off. Now, one thing you're going to need here is a really small screwdriver end for loosening the screws out of your previous plate. Ecobee also recommends labeling here, which I'm going to do. I've got them sitting up here ready to go, and taking a picture, which I've already done as well. One off here, which is an old Honeywell. One thing I recommend, especially if you're going to try to resell this or whatever, is just make sure you tighten these little screws back down, or otherwise they fall out and you lose them, in case you decide to reuse it or sell it to somebody or anything like that. Now, I've got it off the wall here, and this comes with a faceplate. Ecobee provides a faceplate. I really don't like this. It's kind of large. Yeah, granted, to cover the space for the wall, but it kind of takes away from the coolness factor of the actual Ecobee itself. I'm not going to use the wall plate. Instead, I'm going to basically repaint over this and cover the holes and do all that, so I can, have it on the wall without this white faceplate or wall plate sticking out and kind of take it away from the cool feature and the cool look of the Ecobee itself. If you do decide to use it, I mean, it's pretty easy to install with the wiring plate. So you just put those two together. I'm just going to use the wiring plate itself, which is this one right here. Now, the one thing that Ecobee recommends, and it's also a good idea, is to try to plug up as much of this hole as possible, so that air doesn't come through and draft on the Ecobee or any thermostat. So I'm going to take some, in this case, I'm going to use silicone to kind of plug up the hole a little bit, just to slow down the draft, but you can use, spackle or anything like that as well. The next thing you got to do is make sure that you have the Ecobee level, and then mark the holes, which I've already done. And I'm going to drill here and drill the holes into the wall. Now, most likely you don't have these in an area where it's on a stud, so you have to use the provided wall anchors, which I'm going to do and hammer in real quick. Now, the included wall anchors aren't the greatest. They have to be careful, they bend. I end up using some different ones because they're just not real great quality anchors. So I put some better ones in there, or a little bit better ones. But the next is I'm going to put this wall plate on. The most important thing to remember when putting this wiring plate on is just make sure you try to keep the bubble centered so that the thermostat itself is even. So you have to hold it a little bit to tighten in the screws. Next thing you got to do is take each of the wires and match them up with the corresponding letters here, which is basically the power wire, neutral wire, and the ground and all that stuff for controlling the AC and furnace. It's a matter of just stick them in the side here. I kind of wish for a little bit easier design than what they have on the 3. I think the 4 is a little different. I'm not sure yet. I haven't gotten to that part. But I do kind of wish they made this a little different and made it easier to lock them in place. And it's because I had a little on initially when I installed the first one I did of these, I had initially a hard time getting them to lock so they wouldn't come out. So keep that in mind. But just make sure that you get them locked in place. And that's basically it for the initial install as far as the wiring. Now I've got it wired. It's just a matter of putting the Ecobee faceplate on. Or in this case, I should say display plate for the Ecobee, because it's the display function of the thermostat. And that's basically it. I'll show you setup once I power everything back up. I'm also going to install the Ecobee4. I'm not going to show the install process because it's essentially the same. The biggest difference is the wiring plate is a little bit different because it's got some additional stuff. And it, of course, has the Alexa feature that the Ecobee3, and it also comes with this sensor, which now the Ecobee3 lights also have the same capability. You just have to buy the sensors. I'm not going to necessarily walk through the setup process, but this pretty much walks you through connecting to your wireless internet and all that. And then, of course, you got to register. So this is the Ecobee3 Lite. I don't believe they make the Ecobee3 anymore, as it's not listed on the Ecobee webpage. But essentially, the only difference between the Lite and the 3 is that the 3 has the ability to do dehumidifiers and things like that, like the 4, and included a room sensor. The Ecobee3 Lite doesn't have the ability to do dehumidifiers and ventilators and things like that. It doesn't come with a room sensor, although now it can be used with a room sensor. So that's the biggest difference between those. And then, of course, it doesn't have the features like the 4 with the Alexa speaking capabilities as well. So I have 3 Ecobees. I have 2 of the 3 lights and 1 of the 4 that, because of the fact where the locations are for the thermostats I have, only the 4 in the upstairs bedroom was practical to use. This particular Ecobee3 is in a basement. I have another tucked away in another room on the first floor, and neither one of those are practical to use for, the 4s aren't practical to use in those areas. So, but again, most of the basic features are the same. The overall install takes about 20 to 30 minutes. For me, a little longer because I had to fix the holes from my previous thermostat and paint, because I'm not a big fan of the faceplate. I think it's ugly. It doesn't look good with the Ecobee on it. I think it looks better without it. So that's the extra work there involved with that. I personally think that the faceplate sticks out way too much. It looks kind of ugly on the wall. It's a basic white plastic, and it's too large. It does the job of covering the area, but I just don't really like the looks of it. Now, once this is powered on, the Ecobee pretty much walks you through the initial setup, and that's pretty easy to do. I'm not going to take and go through that, but the one thing I really like about the initial setup is it tells you what wires are connected to help you confirm that you did it right. Now, I did have an initial glitch with this particular one here. This was the first thermostat I set up, and I got an error on when I tried to register it, and it turned out because I had not registered my Ecobee account first, I was trying to do it at the same time that I was doing the thermostat, you get an error. So it's a good idea to go on your computer and set up your Ecobee account first before registering the thermostat, so you may get an error. But I did, contact customer support, and by a phone call, and they quickly resolved the issue for me. So I didn't have that with the subsequent setup of the other thermostats. No issues there. So I recommend setting up your Ecobee account first, and then getting the phone app prior to setting up the Ecobees and getting them registered. Again, although they don't include the sensors with these, Ecobee's made an update to where now the sensors work, the room sensors work. So I like that fact. I do think the extra sensors are a bit pricey on their own. They're in the $30 to $40 each range. I think that's a little high for those, considering they're just a basic sensor. Now, one odd thing between the Echo 3 and the Ecobee4 is that the Ecobee3 has an online user manual which goes into all the features, whereas the Ecobee4 does not for some reason, and it just has a bunch of support articles. I kind of really wish they'd put together a user manual, especially with the Ecobee4's capabilities of speaking and all that kind of stuff, voice commands. But, for me to use this, I read the manual that's online and played around with the different settings and that kind of thing to get familiar. And for the most part, it's pretty easy to understand. There's a settings button here for the various quick change settings and for the weather and for the various other settings that the thermostats has. Again, that is essentially the same with the 3 or the 4. Now, I did have to look up specific settings for how to connect to the Google Home. Ecobees 3 and 4 will work both with Alexa speakers and Google Home speakers. So there's no problem with that. But I had to look up how to connect that and how to set up specific settings such as the reminders and sleep settings, because the initial setup really doesn't walk you through that. It doesn't appear that the Ecobees are compatible with Z-Wave. I've tried to connect that with a Z-Wave controller I have in a Honeywell system I have, and I didn't have any luck with that. So it doesn't look like it's compatible. I like the looks of this on the wall, again, minus the faceplate. I really don't like that faceplate at all. It doesn't quite look maybe as stylish as the metal ring Nest. I kind of wish they would do something a little fancier with the casing, but it looks pretty cool anyway. The touchscreen is pretty responsive. Again, no issues with how it quickly responds and that kind of thing. With my only complaint being some of the icons are a little small and the keyboard being a bit small when you have to type in things with a keyboard. So if you have large hands, it kind of can be difficult because of the small icons. The various menu options allow you to change the temperature, view the forecast, set schedules, adjust the different settings, those kinds of things, including, either making this automatically change between heat and cool, or you can set it to either or off if you want. So I have it automatically set to go between heat and cool, which I like, especially now in the current time of change of seasons, where you may get a hot afternoon and a cold night. So I like that ability for this to switch. One thing about this in the app, which I currently can't show due to I'm using the phone to film this, but is that there's a reminder setting, and I have it set to remind me about changing the filters because I'm always bad about remembering that. And it's set by default to 2014, and before you can actually even switch that, when you enable it, it automatically sends an email saying it's time to change a filter. I think that's a glitch or a bug in the app, and because it defaults to that 2014. I really think an easy fix with that would be, because there's no save setting for those reminder feature in the app. If Ecobee would just change that to have a save feature so that it wouldn't activate until you hit save, so you could change to the date that you've changed the filter, that would probably fix that bug pretty quickly and easily. Now the display here is not overly bright and dims when it's not in use, but it automatically brightens as when you're near it, like when I am now, it's detecting me in front of it. I have one thermostat in the bedroom, and I personally didn't think it was too bright. I didn't really notice it at night. It's not that big a deal. But even so, the display is easy to read from across the room, which I like. The one thing I wish that this had is a learning feature like the Nest does. I like the room sensor idea, but without the room sensors, this is almost an ordinary programmable thermostat with some fancy features. At least the 3 is. I mean, I like the room sensor idea. I think it works well with those. But I think it should have an added ability to learn your habits and that kind of thing, similar to what the Nest can do. It's programmable though. It has pre-programmed settings for sleep, home, away, that kind of thing, along with geofencing, which is cool. I think the schedule program could be a little bit easier and more feature-rich than it is. It's pretty basic. I think that could be a little bit better and improved. The app itself, and again, I don't really have the ability at the moment to show the app on this while I'm doing this, but it's pretty similar in look and feel to what the thermostat looks like and what online it looks like. So, most of the features are pretty much the same. The look is pretty much the same, which makes navigation pretty simple to learn and use. I do wish they would allow you to use add user logins for other individuals instead of just a main account, instead of having to use the same login for each app user. Hopefully in the future they'll add that feature. Now, so far I've had no issues with connection or network issues. I use a Netgear router along with a Netgear extender, so I don't really have any dead spots in the home. But of course that could depend on your network setup and your range of your router too as well. The one thing I think that an issue with these thermostats that I'm not a fan of is the lack of any kind of rechargeable battery, or even the ability to add like AA batteries as a battery backup to kind of keep it in a low power state if the power goes down. Instead, this one has to reboot because there's no battery. I kind of wish they would make a change in the future for future Ecobees to at least give it that ability. Whether it's a rechargeable battery or not, I don't care, as long as you have the ability to add batteries as a battery backup. In addition to being able to be in that low power state and send you out an emergency saying your heater AC's down. Overall the pros with this Ecobee3, and again the Ecobee4 will be similar in a lot of respects. It has a pretty cool look. It's responsive, easy to use display. I like the smart features, especially the room sensors and some of the other smart features it has. It has the auto heat and cool feature, which is cool, the geofencing, which is cool. It has energy saving analysis and capabilities as well. It has an easy to use app. The installation instructions are some of the better ones I've ever seen. They're really easy to follow, easy to understand, and it's easy to install. The 3 has a good online user manual, which is in the Ecobee itself. The initial setup is easy to set up and use. It works with Alexa, Google Home, has the auto dim and auto detection features, the weather forecast feature. The one cool thing, at least in my area, is a lot of utility companies are giving rebates or discounts for buying these smart thermostats, which is in my case, but that depends on your location. So you might be able to get a better deal with these, as opposed to the regular price. And of course, the 3 now works with room sensors as well as the 4. Now, cons with this, it's expensive, especially if you can't get a discount or a rebate from utilities, which make this a really reasonably priced deal for these. One thermostat's needed for each zone in most cases, which is too bad. I kind of wish there's ability to at least have one thermostat control multiple zones. There's no battery backup capability. Some initial registration glitches, which is a small thing. Small icons and keyboard for bigger hands, that makes it difficult. There's no learning features. The scheduling could be a bit better. There's no ability to add a guest login or additional user logins for the app. The wiring plate itself could be a bit easier to install the wires and lock them in place. It has an ugly large trim plate. I really don't like it. The wall anchors, again, minor thing, but they aren't great quality. The wire labels fall off during the install a lot of times, don't stick well, making that can be a pain if the multiple labels fall off. The sensors are not included and are a bit expensive. There's no user manual included, although the online manual is good. Doesn't work for all systems and all devices on the system. There's a small bug in the reminder setting, which I talked about. It's not as stylish as the Nest, and it appears to not be Z-Wave compatible. But overall, I like this Ecobee3. I give it 4 stars, and I'll now talk about the 4. This is the Ecobee4. I mean, for the most part, it's pretty similar to the 3. It's a little thicker, maybe a little larger than the 3. Of course, the biggest difference with this is that, you know, it has the capability of being spoken to with voice commands. You know, it includes a room sensor, and it can do other things such as control dehumidifiers and ventilators, which the 3 Lite cannot do. Both the 3 and 4 can use sensors now, though, so that's not a huge difference other than you get a sensor with this one, and the 3 Lite does not include that. I'm not going to go through the installation steps or anything like that because they're the same. Essentially, the wiring's a little different, but essentially the same. Looks-wise, they're the same, including the same trim plate, which, again, I don't like for how those look, but that's just me with those. Like the Ecobee3, it pretty much walks you through the setup after you've got it powered up and all that. So, you know, that's pretty easy to do. The one odd thing about this, as I mentioned previously in the Ecobee3 part of the video, is that there's no online user manual for this Ecobee4. There is one for the 3, which covers the basic features, of this. But other than being support articles, as far as the details for some of the other features, such as the voice features and stuff, it's just a variety of articles. I really wish they would put together a user manual for the Ecobee4 to give you a one-stop place for looking up things for the Ecobee3. Now, the room sensor is just a small little square white sensor with a stand, or you can wall mount it. But basically, you just pull the battery tab right in front of the Ecobee4, and it automatically recognizes. And then, of course, the Ecobee asks if you want to add the sensor to this particular thermostat. So it's pretty easy to do. The one thing that I wish that they had for the sensor and for the Ecobee settings as well is a notification to let you know when the battery's low on the sensor and when the battery's dead on the sensor, like some type of indicator on both. For whatever reason, they don't have that. Again, the sensors for these extra sensors, I think, are a bit pricey. Like the Ecobee3, it's pretty easy to figure out the various settings. It's pretty well organized and logical. The biggest difference on the screen for this is the microphone button that's an addition for the voice capabilities of the Ecobee4. I mean, I did have to look up some specific settings, especially connecting to like smart speakers, and how to set up specific reminder and sleep settings, that kind of thing. The voice feature and how to connect that to the Amazon account should be better documented, in my opinion. As really as the support articles, you know, you have to scramble around looking for those to figure out how to get it to properly work with Alexa voice, because the basic settings work, voice settings work, but when you try to do something like, say, get it to change the temperature, it says it doesn't work. Well, you have to link it not only when you're doing the initial setup to Amazon, but you have to go in your Amazon account on your computer and do specific smart home setup as well. And I really wish that they would make that, as part of a guide to make it easier to walk through and do all the setup stuff that you have to kind of sort through a bunch of articles to do. Again, the 4 is not Z-Wave compatible, just like the 3. I mean, it looks good on the wall. Again, no issues with responsiveness. It's just as quick. It has the same basic, weather features and different features that the 3 has. Again, no learning features, and the same bug with the reminder settings. Again, that's all the same, along with the display is essentially the same. And like the 3, there's no battery backup either. So the biggest thing is, of course, the feature with Alexa, which I think is pretty neat, although a bit pricey for addition to the thermostat. I mean, again, and it kind of depends on the features or the locations of the Alexa location of your thermostats, because it's not always practical. I'm going to do a demonstration here. Alexa, tell me a joke.
How did the coffee get so strong? By doing the French press.
Now you can also do, change the temperature, that kind of stuff. The one gripe that I saw early on about these is you couldn't turn the light off for the voice capability. That now has been added, that feature, so that light can be turned off if that's annoying to some. But if you don't really need this feature, or you have smart speakers in your home already, you can do basically the same with the 3. The good thing is now Ecobee has added the ESP feature, so this doesn't answer at the same time as other speakers as well. So, but you got various abilities, although limited, what I would say limited voice capabilities. I mean, you can change the temperature, the weather forecast, play trivia games, get a joke, play some music. The speaker isn't going to be as good as what a smart speaker is, because it's located in the back, but it's okay. It's decent. And it, isn't as feature rich as a smart speaker. And again, some features are limited to what your Amazon account capability is. If you have Prime or Prime Music, that kind of stuff, you're limited in that respect a little bit if you don't. But overall, most of the pros of this are the same, with the addition of the voice capabilities to control various things and do various things. The microphone is pretty decent. The speaker's okay considering its size and location. But most of the other stuff is pretty much the same. I mean, with the addition that this one has the ability to work with quite a bit more system devices than the 3 does. And it includes the the room sensor as well. Again, it's expensive. It's way more expensive than the 3 because of the fact that they're adding the Alexa capabilities and the extra room sensor. Again, most of the cons are initially the same, with the exception of the addition of a lack of a good user manual for the 4, and documenting some of the features of this voice and some of the features that this has versus the other Ecobee3 could be a little bit better, and that kind of thing. But overall, I mean, essentially they're the same. I like them, especially if you can get a deal from your local utility. You get almost half off on these, which makes it a great deal. I give both the 3 and the 4 4 stars in that respect, depending on what your use is and whether you want to use room sensors or have voice capabilities or not. But both are good speakers, good thermostats, and work pretty well for what they are. And I like them. And just mainly the cost is probably the biggest thing about these negative as well. And again, some of the other things in terms of design of the trim plate and some additional bugs and features that could be improved as well. But 4 stars for both.